Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Welcome to the December 9th Board of Education meeting for Evanston Township High School. Can I have a roll call, please?
Here. Yep, here. 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 Here.
Here. Thank you. So the first item on our agenda is written communication. Dr. Davis, do we have any written communication?
We have no written communication this evening.
Okay, good. All right. The next item is comments from the public. Do we have comments from the public?
We have no comments from the public this evening.
All right. Okay, so we're at item number 6 already, and the first item is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report from fiscal year 2023.
Yes, and this is the ACFR, is what referred to, and I thought Kendra would do it from her seat, but she's going to go to the podium and talk about the award.
Might as well.
CFO Williams.
All right, well, good evening, board. I'm super proud to present the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting received from GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. So this is an award that was started some time ago, almost 80 years ago, by GFOA to really encourage local governments, state governments, and organizations to go above and beyond when it comes to their financial reporting, to make sure that they are promoting transparency and full disclosure. And so, you know, of course, with District 202 and our board goals, we have number 3 of fiscal accountability, where we prioritize equity, integrity, and transparency. And so this really aligns with our district goals and everything that, you know, we say that we're about. And so I'm happy to announce that we were able to receive this award based on our submission of our annual comprehensive financial report that we submitted. And this is our 16th year in a row that we've received
16 years.
16 years. That's amazing.
Yes, it is. And it's no small feat. So, you know, I can't say enough how proud I am to be presenting it. But of course, I'm just one person standing before you. And it's not all me. So, you know, a huge shout out goes out to the business office, who helps put all the pieces together, but also to you, board, for your oversight and guidance through everything that we do, and also to all in our community that also help us to balance the budget through the use of property taxes, and then of course everyone here at ETHS that helps us to remain fiscally accountable, right? Because it's everything that we do every day. So thank you to all, and yay us.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I feel like I should give you a pen. Yeah, right. It doesn't go with her dress. Someone just said. Well, that'll be nice. Nice picture. Thank you. And also make sure that your group, your office, your staff understand how much we appreciate all the hard work you do. So thank you. All right. It's a good way to start.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is the report on student well-being.
All right, so Madam President and the board, we have Dr. Mia Levizo, our Associate Principal for Student Services, and her team, Manira Bolas, Dr. Dondaleo White, and Sarah Long, who will come and share the annual report on student well-being.
Good evening.
I know.
Dr. Campbell was serious. And
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah, we have a
right.
lot of people watching.
Really?
No pressure.
I'm not nervous. No pressure. Well, thank you guys so much for having us here, and I couldn't be here alone because this team has been a godsend. So I'm very thankful, and I'm so happy to be sitting here with them. And Dr. Campbell did introduce them, and I would like for us, if it's okay, can we introduce ourselves? Because again,
Please.
I just think it's really important. And I'm Dr. Levizo. I am the associate principal, and we have next.
Dr. White, Director of Student Support Services.
Sarah Long, Director of Student Services. Hi, good to see you all. Manira Bolas, the Department Chair of Student Services. Last year I was in the role of Student Services Intervention Coordinator. My pronouns are she, her. Nice to see you all.
Nice.
Thank you. So this is just a good overview. There is so much work that's done in student services that a report is very difficult to just summarize everything that's done. So I want you guys, we're happy, we're looking forward to the questions, and hope that you will enjoy this report as much as we enjoy the work we're doing to bring this to you. So we're just starting off with our overview. You're going to see the board goals and crosswalk, our spotlight, and then we'll go through it with just things that we're doing for equitable and excellent education. And then we go into well-being, and how I framed it was looking at mental health, things that we situate underneath mental health, our student support teams, academic intervention, alt school, 504 plans, PHP, looking at counseling and post-high school planning. Then we have a little section that's looking forward, looking at opportunities and challenges, and our conclusion. So just looking through our crosswalk, it's just important that we try to work within our equitable education, and same as last year, we're looking to continuously be culturally responsive in everything that we do, with our work with students, with staff, and again, with being collegial with one another, giving access and opportunity to students, providing language access services, translation, interpretation. There is a lot of different things that we do, and we're still building this goal and making sure that we're meeting objectives and following the mission of the board. Our well-being, again, we have our pre and post hospitalization, our suicide prevention, awareness, our tier 2 interventions, our IEP intervention groups, and then again with mental health, we have professional development opportunities for our staff, and again, centered always on student well-being. And we have our academic intervention team that again goes and contributes highly to our work with well-being. The fiscal responsibility, just making sure that we continue to get the achievements that we have by being fiscally responsible. Looking at how we're spending, looking at making sure that we're not just seeing it as being frivolous, and just being very intentional and budget conscious with the department. Our goal 4 with community engagement, we build a lot with working with YOU. They support a lot of the work that we do with students, and they partner with us, come into some of our department meetings and spoken with us about services and things, offerings that they have. The Oakton Early College and Alyssa's Mission, they do a great job with us with our suicide, our SOS programming. Our peer services works with us with substance abuse education, and they do a lot with our PE classes. And JCFS is something that we're doing with our sexual assault awareness. Something I thought was really important, and I'm not going to read all of this because it's too much, but to highlight or spotlight was last year we really were intentional with our HBCU planning. Annually, for many years, Elena Amaker, one of our counselors, has done a fantastic job planning our HBCU panel in the evening times. Well, she and I were collaborating and brainstorming and saying, how do we bring this to the school? How do we bring more attention and intentionality to highlighting what's important for students, Black students in particular, with regard to historically Black colleges and universities? So when we did that, we had an entire day dedicated to HBCU planning. We had our internal, we had external speakers come, and we just made it such an amazing, it is something I was so proud of the work that we did. And as a result of that, and I thought it was so important to highlight, we had a 14% increase, and I believe it is a one-to-one relationship with what we did. It was direct impact. We had a 14% increase of college applications for HBCUs, and I think that's something very significant for our students to understand culturally who they are, how they see themselves, and what opportunities lie ahead for them. It is not to undermine any opportunities that they have for PWIs, but it's also very important to note, how do you see yourself and where do you see yourself? And you'll see more about that next year's report, but we had another amazing event this year and a night panel that was very well attended, and our counselors have been very instrumental in supporting that as well. So again, just talking about equitable and excellent education, these are just opportunities that we have to show where we're being intentional with that work. Our translation services, freshman advisory and sophomore advisory study halls, and the information that's being shared there, and being intentional with our students, ensuring that post-high school planning is happening in those classes. SEL workshops are, Allie Hart and her team have been phenomenal with their planning and implementation of this work, and we definitely want to credit them for that work that they're doing. Again, the culturally responsive practices related to post-high school planning and our course planning requests, course request planning, excuse me. So when we talk about student well-being, we know everybody's first and foremost concern is mental health. So we talk about our social workers. One of our school social workers, Farzana Shabda, was really passionate in an email she sent me, and I said, I'm going to make sure that I pay attention to this. We can't do this work alone. We have interns. How many do we have? Gosh, I want to say.
Hello. We have a combination of first and second year social work interns that support our school, as well as school psychologist interns that support as well. So there are about 10 second year and about 5 first year.
In addition, we have 2 counseling interns as well.
But the work that they're doing to ensure that our Tier 2 groups are running, and ensuring that they support the social workers and the very difficult work that they do every day with the students who are coming in and out. We have IEP groups and things like that, but those social work interns are getting invaluable training, and we're really proud to be able to send them into the world to be practitioners under our leadership and the work that we've done and how great our social workers are. So they provide mental health they are our primary mental health professionals. They provide mental health counseling, social, emotional, and well-being support, group facilitation, crisis support, and interventions. We have our school psychologists and our interns as well. They do a lot of the testing, but they also run groups. They're also doing SEL work. They're also doing crisis counseling. They're heavily involved in our risk assessments. Their work is invaluable as well. They provide expertise in behavioral support, academic testing, group facilitation, and they assist families in navigating special education processes and laws. Then we have our school counselors and interns. And again, it's very difficult to just compartmentalize what this group does, because it continues to grow. It just seems like every time we have a need, we bring it to Sarah. And then we talk about ways that we can incorporate counselors into expanding our vision for student services to ensure that our students are getting their needs met as best as we can. And so they provide, in addition to all the other things, but they do the post-high school planning, monitor and support academic progress, provide social emotional support, course planning, and guidance. So last year, we looked at data the year prior and said, what are our needs? What are we seeing overwhelmingly? And we partnered and collaborated together, Sarah and I, with social work leads, psych leads, and we developed Tier 2 groups. And you'll see this here. These are just some of the overarching needs that we saw as things that we wanted to offer students. And that's our grief group. We continue to offer that annually. LGBTQ plus support group. Transfer student group is something that we're trying to build out more so that our students who are transferring in that are not from the community, non-District 65, we want to make sure that when they come into the building, they feel supported, they feel embraced, and there's building a sense of community around them. Again, our executive functioning group continues to grow. And social skills intervention, cognitive replacement intervention group. Our student athlete coping skills group was fantastic. It was just amazing. And two of our social workers worked with this, and they birthed this idea because Sunny Brewer is an athlete, and she was a former PE teacher, so she thought about this, and she put a lot of work into planning this, and she and Jasmine, they did this together, so it was fantastic. I had an opportunity to observe it. Anxiety and coping skills group, something that we continue to need, a rise in anxiety and coping skill needs. Catalyst Boys Motivation Group was something that I thought was very unique and valuable. Our post-secondary planning group, a Latinas Unidas group, and we will always continue to do our IEP goals groups. But what we saw with this was the Tier 2 group impact was we were reducing social work referrals. These are our goals and what we hope to continue to see. Reduce our risk assessments, improve social and coping skills, and improve academic performance. So just taking a look at our social work referrals, I was trying to, I want to make sure that I'm giving you exactly, darn it, okay. So we can just kind of break it down a little bit. We see a fluctuation with our social work referrals, and I did include referrals up until December 1st of 2024. But social work referrals have various reasons. There could be things that are teachers referring them, safety staff, many different encounters. That doesn't mean that there's an ongoing issue with the student, but everyone is intentional and looking at how we support our students' needs. When we look at, our racial demographics, we have a breakdown with that, and we see that our Black and Brown students continue to be represented in those numbers highly, and our white students still have significant needs as well. Okay. Then we were looking at our risk assessment, and based on gender, it's fairly static. It's equal in terms of that. Hold on, sorry. Oh, darn it. Okay. Looking at our post-hospitalization and homebound services, during 23-24 school year, PHP supported 113 unique students, with 10 students experiencing multiple hospitalizations for a total of 123 hospitalizations. When we look at the numbers from school year 22-23, we are seeing that we have a decreased number this year than we did last year. I think with some of the work that we're doing. I'm hoping that it's more impactful. We do have a PHP social worker who is very involved and engaged and partnering with our grade level teams too to be instrumental in how we support our students. Looking at our homebound students from the 23-24 school year, there were 164 students who received homebound instruction for various reasons. 124 were mental health related, 41 were administrative requests, and 6 students received homebound instruction during our summer programs. Again, from 22-23, the number has increased for homebound students for, again, different reasons, where we had 117 students who received the instruction. Academic intervention, very small group of we have 3 staff members who work very well together. They serve various needs. It was initially, they were only targeting students with the Ds and Fs, but we expanded that referral process so that we can try and reach our students a little bit more. They all have so many great skills where they are able to connect with students, and we here have 100 unique students last year that were referred to AIT, and 16% of those students did have 504 plans. Now, they do partner very closely with our 504 case managers to ensure that we're not duplicating services, if I may. So the data reports a disparate number of referrals across racial lines with Black and Hispanic students overrepresented in the program, and it's just a marginal increase from the 92 that we had in school year 22-23. So AIT does something also, because we have Amber Bolden, who is a former counselor, and she's very involved in post-high school planning. She doesn't just look at AIT as advocacy and just working with students as if they're just, meeting with them. She looks at having them expand to partner with the counselors and do some post-high school planning, see where students are so that they can meet the need. And so they do a survey. So last year, 36% of the students, they reported being interested in a 2-year degree, 44% interested in a 4-year degree, 15% interested in career trades, and 31% reported being involved in at least one ETHS activity. So part of her goal for her program is to ensure that all students are connected, because we know that when students are connected to the school, then we have better outcomes with their academics and attendance. And our student support team numbers. Sorry, it's so small for me too. We did this by our graduating class. And again, you see that, sorry, I should have brought my glasses. In 2027, we have 71 students. In 2026, we have, graduating classes. We have 62, 49 for 2025, and 30 for 2024. We look again at our referrals by gender, and the numbers are fairly balanced. And, then looking at our federal race code, again, we continue to see the numbers as we have across all of the data that we collect. You have 23% students who are identify as white, 2 or more races, 5.6%, and Middle Eastern, 0.5%, Hispanic is nearing 32%, and, African American students, darn it, I thought I had this up. I can't see it. 36%, I can't see it. Again, 219 unique students were referred to SST. Black and Hispanic referrals are consistently higher than other race and ethnic groups. And then, again, I said the gender distribution is equal. I thought I did this differently. 504 plans. Woohoo! 608 active 504 plans. It's definitely decreased. from our school year 22-23, when we had 651 active 504 plans by the end of 22-23. But we do still have a significant increase in 504 that we see from when we started tracking back in 21, where there were 599. And I am certain when we report this data for 24-25, the numbers have increased significantly. Now, we're just looking at our alt-school demographics. We had 82 unique students enrolled in alt-school. That was a combination of the day and the evening program. Black and Hispanic students have higher enrollment rates than other races. 4 of our students have IEPs and 4 have 504s. What Dr. White and her team does is a student survey to just ask about their experiences and how did alt school positively or adversely impact them or negatively impact them. And I wanted to highlight some of the sentiments of the students. So one student said, "It allowed me to complete work at my own pace." Another one reported, "It gave me an easy way to complete my high school credits in a fun and low-stress environment, and I had the opportunity to have a great teacher." One said, "It positively impacted me because it allowed me to move at my own pace and to make better connections with teachers. I don't really have anything negative to say about the program." Dr. White reports all of the student responses, but I just wanted to highlight some of the ones to let us know how impactful that program is for our students who struggle to be in a general education setting. And I'm not going to read all this to you guys, but I just want you to know that our college and career team, they work very hard to bring work opportunities and education as well as college access and readiness to our students. And again, we had our college and career. I thought this was pretty important. The results of the survey on how students felt if they were prepared or not for school beyond college, beyond ETHS. And results show that white students feel more prepared for college than other racial groups. Black and Hispanic data represents a decreased level of college readiness. These are all self-reported from the students, and I have it broken down by many students say, "Hey, we're still working on it," and that's not a bad thing. I mean, at 17, 18, I don't know how many people had it all together, but I do think that, you know, this data reports a need for us to be more intentional with some of our programming. So I think it's very valuable for us to use. Again, this is just looking forward. You know, we review data, we identified the need for more data-driven strategies, and we'll enhance the Tier 2 interventions with targeted evidence-based approaches to better support students. Some of the groups that are running currently this year that I just put here for looking forward, these are some of the groups that we came up with based on data from last year and that are currently running, so I won't provide any information really about them. But again, we talk about what we want our Tier 2 groups to do for us, and that's reduce social work referrals, risk assessments, and improve social work coping. And then in conclusion, our 23-24 Student Services Wellbeing Report highlights the district's commitment to fostering a supportive, equitable, and responsive environment for our students through a wide range of programs addressing academic success, mental health, post-high school planning, and social-emotional development for the significant strides in meeting the diverse needs of our student body. And that concludes our report.
Thank you. All right, board, any questions? Anybody? Mira? Pat?
Well, first of all, thank you. This was a great report. I loved reading it just for a lot of reasons. I think clearly the intentionality that you all are putting into this work, and you know, I've been paying attention certainly since I've been on the board, but even before, to the supports and the work that we're doing to support student wellness. And I see such a growth, and not only growth, but the layering and the depth depth of the planning and the programming to support kids on multiple levels with multiple opportunities. And really, one of the things that really came across is that you're seeing kids not in boxes, but in all the complexity that all of us bring, right? Each of us are pretty complex, and kids are the same. So I was just really, really impressed by that. And also the use of data, the way that you've really learned from what you've done and applied it to move forward, be it new programming or improvements of programs or expansion of programs, whatever. So just really, this was a wonderful report, and I really appreciate all the work, not only to the report, but all the work you did to support our students. So this is my question I ask every year, and Taya's already sitting there saying, I could say this for you, because she's heard it for years, but we're the board, we pass the budget. That's a big part of what we do. But what more would you want or need to do all this wonderful work and more?
You're off the hook.
Actually, I really appreciate that question. And the first 2 years that I was asked that question, I had trepidation responding. I don't today.
Good.
Because I understand our need, and I understand what it takes to get there. I think that it isn't what necessarily student services needs. I think it's what the district needs. And we really, I'm not going to look at Kendra. We really, truly need an MTSS coordinator. It's one who is highly qualified, who understands the complexities of MTSS work and how it impacts interventions, and it works across the district. It isn't a student services need, it's a school need. And Manira has been fantastic in working in that capacity, in addition to the student support team facilitator and department chair. It's a lot, and I would really like to see her work in collaboration with someone, but really focus in on some of the more in-depth needs that we need for our interventions, for our social workers. She supervises our psychs and social workers and does a fantastic job, but I would love to see her focus more on that and building out some of those interventions and having an MTSS coordinator identify building-wide needs. And it kind of be taken over in that capacity, if I may be very honest. That is.
No, I appreciate your honesty.
What
Thank
would be
you.
great.
Thanks very much for your terrific report and your great work.
That's great. An MTSS coordinator would change the structure of how things are done, how students get to you. Because my question, I know that Mira has a question, was how do you get students for the groups? You know, how do they hear about the groups? How do they come to the groups? I was reading about some of these groups. There's some great groups, but then I wonder, would students know they need this group?
Can I ask you, what's the MTS, whatever, SS coordinator?
Multi-tiered systems of support.
Yeah,
Say that
multi-tiered.
again?
Multi-tiered systems of support
It's
coordinator.
an overall person that would organize all of the supports that students get.
Okay.
And
thank you.
interventions, classroom interventions, preventions, monitor the data, monitor the interventions, all that.
Okay.
So would you like me to answer directly in regards to the question of how students then are referred to
Yes.
our Tier 2 groups? So we have I'm going to answer kind of in two parts in regards to what we did last year and then what we've sort of learned from that and some changes that we've already begun to implement in regards to this year. So last year, a majority of our students were referred to a Tier 2 group through our SST. So part of our student support team problem-solving meetings, they occur every week, every Tuesday. We have our grade level teams that are divided into sort of Team A, Team B across each different grade level. And then on Thursdays, we hold our SST3 meeting. So that's if we have a parent guardian meeting that comes in if for a student that needs a higher level of support. So if a need is identified either through the grade level team, a teacher, staff member can also refer a student to SST, kind of going through the counselor. Those students are then brought up for us to problem solve within our team meetings. Problem solving can involve looking at our whole bandwidth of tiered intervention support. So it's not just our tier 2 groups. It can be that we've determined, based off of the student's attendance, the needs of the student, maybe we're going to refer them to a student advocate, right? Maybe we're going to refer them to the literacy lab or the math lit lab for this year. So the various just interventions that we have. So as we're discussing the student within SST, if we've identified that there's a social emotional need that then fits that criteria for the referral, then similar to how we refer to AIT, we'll submit that referral, and then the facilitator will have the opportunity to do the intake and determine if the student best fits for that group. For our Tier 2 group specifically, then once the facilitator, meets with the student, determines if the student is an appropriate fit, then they'd also reach out to the parent to kind of let them know. For some of the groups, that makes the most sense, right? Because there is a specific criteria that kind of needs to be met in order to determine that it's the right intervention. Yeah. It's not necessarily an opt-in support for a student, and so it doesn't necessarily make sense for a student to say, hey, I want to be in the, let's say, the executive functioning group. I think that would be a great fit. There's a lot of executive functioning we know is a weakness for anybody under the age of 26, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that our executive functioning group is the correct support for that student. We have our freshman advisory, we have AVID, we have a number of different Tier 1 supports that would most likely be the best fit for them. Right. So that's when the grade level team is able to really make sure that that's the best support appropriate for that student. This year, what we've sort of identified is there are some specific groups, the executive functioning one being one of them, where we've explored getting more teacher feedback actually for referrals for that group. Previously, again, it kind of came from if a teacher reached out or as we're talking about a student, then that would be a referral, whereas this year after we received our Q1 data, we then identified, hey, how can we more explicitly outline what this group is so that teachers are aware, and after they receive that Q1 feedback, if they've noticed, okay, this student is exhibiting various characteristics, towards the end of this quarter, they pushed and got everything in at the very last minute. Their grades were fluctuating throughout the entire semester. The work completion was like 70%. Those are sort of tangible, or those are data points that are hard for us from a grade level team to see that, right? That's not really written anywhere. And so we've elicited that through teachers after Q1 to then get more referrals to that Tier 2 group.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's really understanding the groups and the teachers who know the students better. Yes, and the team.
We also made a change this year as well. So we kind of created a PowerPoint slide that we have this year that explicitly outlines each of the Tier 2 group, mental health groups that we have as well. And then those were shared with the department chairs to then share out with their teachers too.
Excellent, great. Thank you. Sorry, Mayor.
No, it's okay. Monique, did you want to follow up with that?
Okay. I just wanted to understand it.
Okay.
What your lingo.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes. And it's so good to know that our follow-up student behavior will be also thinking about that, especially at Tier 1 space of the classroom and management. So I'm going to make an assumption, which is not probably a good idea. But just to also make a point, and also I really second what Pat just said about your work and your brilliant, the write-up and the analysis. So I don't mean to jump over that. I just want you to know that I appreciate your work. I am thinking about how, unless I missed it, but I didn't see a disaggregation of racial identity for suicide, hospitalization, or 504s. Was it in there? Okay.
Actually, we have it. I didn't put it in there. But the suicide risk assessment, we don't have racial identification. We're working on actually getting that, because that has been something that has been brought to our attention normally, and we would have to just get a specialized report run based on the student's ID. But when we do a suicide risk assessment, there's no place in there to set, for racial identifier, but there is a way to collect that data. So we are definitely looking at the importance of that and being able to identify significant needs for students in that regard.
Okay, thank you. And I think about sometimes we don't get to address, and this is where my assumption is coming in, the impact of racism, of white supremacy on white kids. And I think if I'm using my assumption, and I hate to do that, but there's probably a majority of white students in these populations of 504 suicide and hospitalization. And so that's just a place that I think it would be good for us to understand the impact of white supremacy on white kids. But again, I'm making an assumption.
You're not really making an assumption, it's factual, but instead of that, it'd be good for you to have that information, so we'll make sure that that is something that we're reporting out next time.
Thank you.
Leah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, to start out, that I think that this report and everything you shared is a testament to how much student services does and how much that you all juggle, and how there's never enough time in any day to do what you want to do. So kudos. I had a question about, so I'm looking at the written report that we got in our packet, which is a little different than the slide presentation. And so I had a comment and a question. The comment I had was, there was in opportunities for growth and change, there was reference to, I guess, introducing a summer enrichment program tailored to help struggling students who are credit deficient earn credits to get back on track to meet graduation requirements. And I just wanted to say that I'm really glad to see that. I know from experience how it can be for students to feel like they've dug themselves into a hole, and then they start a new school year, and they just feel like they're getting more and more behind, and then they disengage. So I just really wanted to note that that was in the report. And then the question I had was, there was also reference to a new MTSS platform that will streamline the process and allowing staff to track progress, identify trends, and adjust strategies in real time. And I just wondered if you could just say a bit more about that.
Let me just say something. So, thank you, Leah.
Okay.
And that it was so that we can talk, that I was kind of setting the stage for next year's report.
Yeah, okay.
Because all of those wonderful things are currently happening right now.
Okay.
So that's Panorama. We've, and I don't want to take Manira shine because she's so amazing. She did like the work,
You may
the
have to
lion's
define
share.
like what that is and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Okay.
Or Manira does, whatever.
Well, before we do that, I want to say that we had a position that was in our department for at-risk students and things, and we, Dr. White, we worked and collaborated and partnered and said, how do we repurpose this to make this meaningful and change impact? And Dr. White, I am somebody who have great ideas, but I am all about sharing and giving their credit when it's due. She proposed the summer enrichment program, so we did that this past summer for alt school, and we had our own summer program within summer school, and we utilized our new teacher to expand alt school as well. So we are really reaching more students, again, who, when you see the results of alt school and those students who say, I'm doing much better than I would have been in the traditional setting, for whatever reasons. They have various reasons. But if we've expanded it also to include credit deficient, second semester freshmen? Yes, second semester freshmen. However, they're not going to stay and graduate from art school. We want to get them up to speed and then reintegrate them back into the ETHS system because we want them to still have the full access and benefits of what the school offers, the Gen Ed program offers. But for our older students, we certainly want to do whatever we can to ensure their ultimate goal is graduation, and we want to make sure that we help them realize that goal. So that's why that is there.
Thank you.
Panorama. So Panorama came out of a need that was identified. I mean, last year, I should say, we moved on identifying the need, but I think that it was a consistent need that the district has had for since I've been here. And the process was led by Dr. Kenzie last year in regards to us exploring various software, educational software that could help us document the various interventions that we're doing within the school building. Because as you know, with 3,600 students and over 700 staff, it's difficult to make sure that everybody knows how we are supporting Johnny. What support has been done for Johnny throughout this entire school year, but throughout his entire time here at ETHS. And so Panorama is a software that allows for us to track the interventions that the student is being supported within the building. It also outlines the various sort of day-to-day support that a student receives. So, Johnny came down to talk about he needs a bus pass, we can document that. So it's not necessarily an intervention, right, but it is a support that's being provided. So it allows for us to track that. And it also is a more, I would say, graphically comprehensive and easier way to digest various data in regards to academics, behaviors, and attendance for a student. And so it will allow, while there's various ways to see that within an eSchool, it's not really as a comprehensive view. You have to go through 15 different screens to kind of get a full picture of a student. And so Panorama allows for us to have that overarching holistic view of a student. It's in a number of different districts. It primarily started off as a survey functionality, so social emotional well-being surveys, and they've expanded now into their intervention tracking platform. But it's been a great way for us to ensure that all team members throughout the building eventually are aware of how we're supporting our students. So that's Panorama, and this has been the first year that we've began to sort of implement it, and I will leave it at that unless there's additional questions, because there's a lot.
Who has access to it?
As of right now. So in the spring, we purchased the software, and then over the summer, we did some initial work to kick us off this school year. So this year, we began with it primarily within student services in relation to the count. It's grown. As people have begun to see what it is, they want to get in on it because it's good. It's a great way to see the support. But it began primarily with our counselors or social workers or psychs at the very beginning, and then we've expanded now to most of the interventionists within the building. So AIT, restorative practices, truancy, our literacy lab, our math literacy lab. If there's an intervention in the building, we've pretty much expanded now to onboarding and then integration as well. Next week we have a meeting to kind of initially review sort of semester one. But yeah, at this point, that's where we're at.
Thank you. I have one tiny little extra question. Can I ask? This is in the college and career services part. I just wondered if this was true or maybe a typo or whatever. I noticed that when they were referring to supports just beyond the programming that the counselor lessons and the college career services specifically do, they said how the data science class is leveraging school links, and then it says AP English introducing the application essay. And I wondered, is it only AP English? Because why would it only be AP English and not all English classes?
They are doing the college application process throughout all their classes. They'll work on college essays throughout all the English classes, but I think that was a particularly targeted class that Beth's team, Beth Airy and her amazing team worked with in collaboration with the teachers.
Okay, got it. Yes. Thank you.
Gretchen.
I don't want to take up too much more time, but I just wanted to touch on something that's a recurring theme for me when everybody does a report in front of the board. And that is the use of raw numbers versus percentages of our student body. And this report has a couple of occasions where we're referring to a trend in, for example, the number of social work referrals, and then a little bit later, there's also a bar chart on suicide risk assessment counts, and we talk about trends. I don't think we can talk about trends based on the data that's presented here because it's just raw numbers. So, for example, there's a line drawn across the bar graph, and I know that our student body numbers are not static over the course of, from 21 to currently. And this is a pretty small, I think it would be hard to say there's a trend even if we did have the numbers as a percentage of our student body. But, and I've done this before. I've taken reports when I'm at home preparing for a board meeting where I have to go dig into our school report card and come up with our total student body, and then I have to go back to the report and I have to do math and figure out what the percentage of the student body referred to is again. But I just really wish, this isn't just you, it's been many groups that come to present before our board, but I will note that the discipline report coming up has mastered it.
Yes.
So if you want a model, you can look at that discipline report for how they utilize the actual percentage of our student body. It just makes it, and I'm going on about this because it's been many years that I've talked about it, and I know that not all of you have been here for many years, but I'm in my final months on the school board. So I'm going to go after it now. And I would love to see it because I do think these trends, if they are trends, are huge to know. How many students are getting referred and how many students have gone through a suicide risk assessment. I mean, that's hugely important. But the raw numbers are not showing us a trend at all. They're just a point in time, which is interesting, good to know, or not good to know. We'd like to see fewer. So it's still, it's not that it's irrelevant, but I'm just trying to give a little context for why it matters, and I hope that we can keep worrying. I think your report is super interesting and super important because of all this stuff that we've already talked about. So I don't mean to take away from any of that. So many interesting ways to support our students. In a way, just almost too many and so complicated that as a parent with a kid with unknown problems, but somebody who's struggling, I would still have a hard time trying to figure it all out. So, and you've made clear that you care deeply, and so the parents, I think, are going to have to trust in that deep care to navigate this, which is, still terribly complicated. But for the board, I think it'd be great if we had more of that, less raw numbers, more percentage of student body stuff. Thank you.
Liz.
Hi. I have a comment and a question. Just looking at your Tier 2 intervention groups, I just wanted to commend you all for the sheer number of them. The breadth and depth of the groups just amazed me. I was so glad to see everything that was there. So that's my comment. I have a question about homebound instruction, and I'm not an expert on this at all. I'm just thinking back to pandemic days when everybody was at home, but I'm curious, and I know there's a lot of reasons why people might be homebound, but I'm curious, do many of the students, are they able to Zoom into class and have live class instruction, or is that a goal, or what are your thoughts on that?
Homebound is typically provided for students with a medical need. It can be a physical medical need or a mental health medical need. And they provide documentation from a physician or therapist that notes the need for the homebound. And it's not provided by the actual teachers of the students. It is provided by, we have a homebound facilitator. He's a contract guy. We've had him for years. I inherited him, so he's been here 20-plus years. And then we have other teachers who sign up to provide homebound support as well, from special ed teachers to foreign language teachers. And the support is either provided in person or virtually. So the great thing about the pandemic is that it taught us that we could provide some of these services without being in person, because in person, someone 18 years or older has to be in the house. So then there are a lot of other stipulations for providing that service in person. But the coordinator or the person that's providing the homebound instruction collaborates with the student teachers and gets all of the work and the information, and teachers give that person access to their Google Classroom, and then that teacher goes and supports the student with completing those assignments and that work.
And then is the length or the duration of the homebound instruction, like typically a shorter term thing or a longer term thing that could go over 4 years, or?
It depends. So we have students who have sickle cell, and so their physician completes their homebound for the entire year. But for a student like that, it is based on when the need happens. So say they have a flare-up or they have a hospitalization, they may only need homebound to get them caught up in some tutoring, and it may be for like 5 days. That doesn't mean that they're not back physically in school. It just means there was a lapse in their education, and so they need some support getting caught up. So each situation is different. We provide homebound support also from an administrative aspect for students who are suspended 10 days for school. And so it just depends. It varies. Typically for mental health, it's for 6 to 8 weeks, because usually those students are in PHP programs, IOP programs, and so different types of programs.
Thank you for your insight.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions?
I'll just add a comment. I don't have a question. Whenever I get this report, I'm reminded just how diverse and dynamic not only our community is, but this school is. And, how hard you're trying to meet the goals of the board. And so I want to commend you on doing that work. This is not a heavy lift. This is a heavy lift. I'm tired.
Yeah.
This is not a light lift. This is a heavy lift. Not only to keep our students and our families in mind, but working with the teachers, working with everyone in the school and the community to bring in the correct partners to provide the supports to help our students and to help our families. So I think, knowing what I know, I think I support the MTSS. I think that's what it's called.
It is.
Is that it?
You do.
So I support that. I don't know, anything that helps coordination to me is, it's like, yeah, how can we make it better? Because you're doing all this work and it should not be for naught, right? And I know it's not, but this is a lot. This is a lot in my operations mind. I'm looking and I'm listening and I'm reading all this, and I'm just like, I don't know how you hold all this together and then catch things that are falling. So I just want to commend all of you for doing this work that many can't do. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, because we really do work hard, and I am going to take the opportunity to say it is not an individual job. We do this collectively together. Every person here has such a great expertise, and I lean in on them all the time. So thank you for acknowledging that. I appreciate it. It's important to know.
Absolutely.
It's clear, I think that's the sentiment of the whole board. So Monique, thank you for putting that in words for us. But we can see and reviewing this report, how hard you work and how many students you touch and how much you learn from students and aware of the needs of the students to drive your work. And even looking ahead in the future at a possibility of having an MTSS coordinator or whomever would take on that role. That's big. Or whatever, maybe it would be one of you, I don't know. But I know that it's big. I know that it's a lot and it's big. There are other districts doing it, so lots of models out there for you to capitalize on. So thank you. Thank you again. Thank you for the report and the discussion.
Thank you all.
Certainly. Great. All right. Uh-oh. To get in trouble. All right, so our next item is the student discipline report.
All right, thank you. We have Dr. Keith Robinson, Associate Principal for Educational Services, Dean Tish Hinkle, Letitia Hinkle, Dean Pedro Soriano, Dean Tamil Moore, and we've got our Restorative Practices Coordinator, Anthony King, in the back to chime in to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Robinson.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You took my bullet point number 3, Gretchen. I was going to thank you for your guidance in reporting. And I know this is your last discipline report in this seat, so we hope that it's acceptable.
I got so much to say.
First of all, I want to take this time to just appreciate you for your work and your support with this team. Bullet point number 3 here says, remember that this is a snapshot from the 23-24 school year. And that one of the things that I think is super important is the fact that we have the new data dashboards, which can give a recent snapshot of what's going on. Let's go right in. I want to introduce my team. With us tonight is Deans Soriano, Hinkle, and Moore. Dean Boyd is not here on today, but we certainly cannot do this work without the support from Angie Harding, our assistant in the Dean's office, Kevin Augusta, Michael Williams, and again, thank you for introducing Mr. King, who has somehow stayed connected to this department, which is dear and near to him. Just to remind the community, the board, really the point of the discipline philosophy of the Dean's Office, we really are committed to creating a safe learning environment, and we prioritize prevention, guide social work, emotional learning, and the use of interventions to empower students with critical thinking skills that's not just for high school, but these are lifelong skills. Mm-hmm. So today we'll talk a little bit about the district goals. Dean Moore will talk a little bit about the disciplinary incidents. Mr. Soriano will talk about the types of disciplinary incidents. Dean Hinkle will talk about the actual suspension data. We'll kind of come back looking at trends and some of the things that we're excited about moving ahead. So here are the district goals. Again, pretty consistent from last year. One of the things that we just want to highlight is the efforts with our community engagement and partnerships. It has been just so amazing to continue with the support from our research partnership. And I cannot tell you how critically important it's been to have the team, the youth division team with the city of Evanston, that really helps us and we help them. It's really great. You know, sometimes there's situations that may spill into the building, and they help us out with trying to get ahead of some things and really provide preventative support. And sometimes we're able to do the same thing if we note or hear about something that could kind of spill into the community. So having that relationship has been really critically essential to the work that we're doing. We're really going to focus in on goal number 2, student well-being, where it's 100% of students do not receive a behavioral referral. And although that is quite the aspiration, Mr. Moore is going to tell us the real numbers.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, here at Evanston Township High School, we practice the 3 R's: respect for yourself, respect to others, and respect for the community. And in practicing the 3 R's, 70% of our students went through the entire school year without receiving a conduct referral or having any incidents. We did have, however, 751 students who created incidents, which resulted in a total of 2,929 referrals for the entire school year. Of those 751 unique students, we had 613 students who received between 1 and 5 incidents. However, we had, as you look at the bottom, we had 42 students who required a great deal of support. 20 of those students had between 16 to 20 incidents throughout the school year, and 22 students alone generated more than 21 incidents apiece. Those 42 students combined make up 1.3% of the overall student population, but those 42 students required a great deal of support, and we spent quite a great deal of time trying to find ways to help support them to be successful here in school. When we look at students involved in disciplinary incidents by race, code, and gender, of the 751 unique students, 334 students were African American, 210 students were Hispanic, and 154 students were white. When we look at the students involved in disciplinary incidents by the graduation year, we look at 751 unique students. 58% of the incidents were created by freshmen and sophomore students, and that was for a total of 440 incidents total. So again, 751 unique students, but 58% of those were our underclassmen, our freshmen and sophomore students, and that trend pretty much is continuing on.
Good evening. So I'm looking at the 2,929 disciplinary incidents done by the 751 unique students. And how does that compare to last year? Well, it is a rise of 13%. Last year we only had 2,585. There's various reasons why this may be possible. And as we go look through the data, we can kind of break down a little by little, where specifically this lies. And at the end, if you have questions, we can try to address those. As you see at the top, I think I mentioned this actually at the last board meeting last year, that we were going to be breaking down the unauthorized presence section, because we felt like it was an area that required a deeper look. And here, as you can see, the differences, as we broke it down, still there's a lot of things that are being categorized simply as unauthorized presence, which could mean kind of roaming the hallways, not being in class without a pass. But I think we did specifically look at some of the other areas, specifically saying, they were in unauthorized areas, in spaces that they were not supposed to be in, unsupervised. Perhaps, they weren't given a pass to be in a certain area, so that's probably that. As far as exiting the building without permission and exiting class without permission, those are more specific, and our staff was able to really narrow down on those specific reasons. Still, as you see, that's our main referrals that we receive in the dean's office. And then the next one is disrupting the school environment, not following teacher or staff directions. This one is going to be kind of broken down a little further, specifically with some of the referrals that we are really looking at regarding our cell phone policy and not following that. So the 3 new ones that we will have for the next year's report will specifically say if a student was cell phone, either talking or texting, cell phone not in storage, and the third was using cell phone or, not placing it away or putting it away. So we will look at that more specifically. But as these situations indicate, there's something we can work on addressing more specifically of where students are supposed to be and what we can do to try to get them more focused on more on instruction as opposed to being distracted. As we look at the referrals, as mentioned by Dean Moore, the grad year, you'll see more at the first freshman and sophomore grade level. It's that transition that they're making to the high school, and specifically, they don't have deans over there, so now there's someone to address those issues that they may have had in the past. But this way, by the time they get to juniors and seniors, as you can see, it really goes down. So, as far as this is something we've looked at for many years, and of course this is very concerning, but this is just the breakdown of what we see. I mean, we're not going to, we cannot change these things overnight, but we have been working on addressing these year after year. So as you can tell, our black and brown students are the ones that are mostly involved in the incidences here at ETHS. And no surprise, we've talked about this over the years. The male students are more active and more often visitors to our offices. And then the bottom shows the discrepancies from students with free and reduced lunch as opposed to non-low income students. And those with IEPs are about almost 1,100, and without IEPs are 1,841. And our EM students, it's a growing more of a growing population, but those that are here are involved in almost 500 of the incidences in our offices.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to report on the suspension data. And so during the 23-24 school year, 250 students resulted in 503 suspensions. Now, I'm going to kind of break down the different types of suspensions. We have inside suspension and out-of-school suspension. And if we take a look at the data, there were 308 incidents that resulted in inside suspension and 195 that resulted in outside suspensions. However, it is important to note that we're working hard to make sure that students are in school so that they're able to access or gain access to instruction as well as other support services through the ALC. As we break down the data a little bit more, we're taking a look at the top 3 infractions that result in students being placed in inside suspension or placed on outside suspension. And at the top, of course, unauthorized presence, which has resulted in a number of inside suspensions for our students. Once again, I will reiterate that we are choosing to place them in inside suspension so that they are able to stay connected in school and receive the supports necessary for them to be able to actually be able to function in the way that they should in the building. And then if we take a look at outside suspension, our number 1 infraction, of course, is, as we look at it, is fighting at 36%. As we look at suspensions by the grad year, We highlighted the class of 2026, our current juniors, and the class of 2027, our current sophomores. And these students continue to demonstrate a need for more intensive support, and we have continued to refer students to various supports so that they are able to receive the supports necessary when they show this need. Suspensions by federal race code, and you take a look at the data here, inside suspensions versus outside suspensions. At the top, we see that our Black and brown students, unfortunately, are the majority who are suspended both in and outside of school. Suspension by gender. If we're taking a look at this, out of the number of students who identify as male and or female, our male students are at the top as they are placed in school suspension and outside suspension. Inside suspension at 59% and outside suspension at 69%. Now I will break down the suspensions by income status. The low-income students make up 77% of the suspensions for both inside and outside suspensions. So suspensions by IEP status, in comparison, students who do not or are without IEPs are shown to have an increased number of inside and outside suspensions. And then suspensions by EM status. It is important to note here that EM status students are at 20%, nearly 20% for both inside and outside suspensions.
All right, this is great as far as having longitudinal data from 2016. And I'll tell you what's really interesting. Is this the, yeah, here we go. I'll go over here. It appears, if we're looking at the different numbers, if you're looking at kind of pre-COVID numbers, it's really interesting that the data this year kind of feels like it should be slotted right there before pre-COVID, which I thought was really interesting, which in one way could seem that it's, we're kind of jumping back to where we were with the trending, the downward trend in the data for most subgroups. This too is a line graph of students who were suspended one or more times throughout the years from 2009-10 to now. And again, there is that decreasing trend there. But again, it's really interesting if we're looking, at that critical piece when COVID hit us, we're still kind of down. So I'm trying to think and wonder what that is and if that's a good sign that we're jumping back in. But it's just something to note. And this is the percentage. We had the numbers, Gretchen Levinson, and now we have the percentage. Again, which is an interesting downtrend for those students who were suspended one or more times.
When we look at students suspended one or more times by race and ethnicity, of 236 unique students, 125 of the students were African American, 83 of the students were Hispanic, and 28 of those students were white. The percentage of students suspended one or more times by race or ethnicity, 15% were African American, 11% were Hispanic, and 2% were white. And the number of days supported instructional time lost for the 2023-24 school year, a total of 655 days of instruction was lost by students. 383 days total were served in the AOC or in-school suspension, while a total of 272 total days were lost because of outside suspension.
So when we look at how do you save some of those days, because it did drop, I don't know if you can go backwards real quick, from 895 to 655. Well, this next chart shows us how. In previous years, we had multiple kind of alternatives to suspensions and reduction programs. This year, we've narrowed it down to 3, and these have been really used to support our students. Now, the restorative practices has kind of encompassed several separate programs that we used to have, but specifically, I will look into more of the specifics of that program, but that's our program that's led by Mr. King. He does an incredible job with our students, and he's able to immediately, in many cases, he's able to really get working with the students sooner than later. When incidents occur, it's good to have an individual that is able to really connect with the students and help them to understand the circumstances of their situation. The next one would be Students Understanding Impact, which is done through with our SAP coordinator, social worker that specializes in substance abuse, and really works with our students. We do have to make referrals to that staff member after, the incidents occur, and then they proceed and process through. They try to get through them as quickly as possible with their team, but we understand sometimes they get backed up a little. And then Community Service Program, which we're working on with Dr. Robinson, myself, and Aaron Clays with the Community Service Department, working to give us other options to work with partner with our community members, community programs to reduce some of our suspensions and other incidences. As I mentioned, the restorative practices encompasses several things. So we have it says peace circles, but it's many things. I think it's peace circles, restorative conversations, check-ins. These are the specifics that could be asked of Mr. King, since he is present today, on what he specifically does with the students. I know we've seen it firsthand in the dean's office, and how he's worked to mediate a lot of the issues that have come to us. And we do really appreciate that. The next is the Third Millennium, which is an online platform that is used to kind of address some of these incidences that occur. Of course, these go through a referral process. Typically, the process goes, we speak to Mr. King, and then we put a referral in, and then he tries to get going on it, and he feels, he kind of looks at the situation and which one of these, I guess, tools from the toolbox can be best utilized for this particular incident, whatever it might be. So you have the online, as I said, the online platform of Third Millennium. We have accountability projects, which are assigned to the students by Mr. King, and then the SEP, which is the Student Empowerment Program, where they work in a small group, and they typically discuss better decision-making, peer pressure, those type of situations. But there's also a component of a peer jury, like a small group peer jury, to help the students understand kind of the circumstances or what brought them to that particular group on that particular day.
So through our partnership with North Cook's ALOP program, in response to the increased number of unauthorized presence in the building, Mr. Bogan and Ms. Beatrice Cabrera have connected with 61 of our students by recommendation of their grade level team. Now, through their work with our students, we're hoping to continue to utilize them as they work with our students who struggle with unauthorized presence in the building to combat this in-school truancy so that students are able to attend classes, understand the importance of attending classes, and improve their attendance overall. So what are we going to do with this data, about this data? Well, first of all, we're going to continue to build relationships throughout this building, as well as throughout the community, because we know that it takes a village to do the work that we do. And we're also going to continue to work with the student advocates to reiterate, to, combat the in-school truancy that we have continued to see throughout our building. Next, we are going to expand the work that we are doing with Mr. King through the restorative practice process. And lastly, we are really going to dig deeper into the data so that we are able to make adjustments throughout the school year and in the future, which would be to figure out how can we be effective in best supporting our students in this building.
And with that, I get a chance to do the thank yous to our research team, who are incredible. It's really easy to just pull data and run reports, but Doctors Levy and Harder really have, and they're interested in the work. They're interested in the data, and they help us connect dots and run those reports. Dr. Bavis is a great thought partner with how to present the data. So again, much gratitude to Dr. Bavis. Our school resource officers continue partnership with the village. With the village. I have mother. Wrong town. Sorry.
Wrong town.
Yeah, the city. As we continue the partnership, and it's again have the critical work and support from those guys, and our safety department. Again, boots on the ground, who are extensions of the office to help find. They know where to find them when they're hiding, in all the crevices of this school. And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that report and all of those details. We'll start over here with Pat, and then we'll work our way around.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought we're looking at Greg. Well, first of all, thank you for this report, and thank you for all this work, because I know these numbers are just the tip of the spear, iceberg, whatever metaphor you want to use in terms of just how much you all are doing and how many students you're meeting with and supporting. So it's a huge job, and I really appreciate all that you do. Couple of things. Well, really, I guess I have one main question, concern, is so for several years I raised this issue of unauthorized presence. I didn't understand what it was. It seemed amorphous and very open to, I might think you're, I might write you up, but someone else might not. It was very open. And I really appreciate that you went into the language and made it more clear. But as we see this year, we have 100 more suspensions as a result, from last year 5 to this year 105. And that's just for the general category, not for the other, the breakdown that you did. And I guess, I know you want to work on sort of looking at the data and trying to figure this out, but I think this is sort of an example of the work that we really need to do, and how, all of these categories we need to better understand. And I know you're doing that. You're meeting with students. You're trying to individualize the supports for them. And I think that's fabulous. But it just, this is kind of, to me, as I read the report, it really stuck out as, this is an example of a lot of other things, right? So, for example, could we share this data with our safety staff so that they see maybe some of their own implicit bias? Are they writing up African-American boys more than white boys? Or, things like that. I feel like this is just a really important one. And so I guess it just, it really rang very loudly as I was reading the report. And I guess I have a question in terms of, or I'd like maybe a little more explanation on what that category, the general category, how it's used, when, how does not being in the right place turn into a suspension? And kind of, maybe you could just help a little. I understand it's a lot. There's a lot there. I don't expect you to answer it all, but maybe just help me understand it a little better.
So for these, the 80, I think I'm looking here at the suspensions, 80 incidences of suspension, in-school suspension for unauthorized presence. I think that could be as far as steps are concerned. So there's an unauthorized presence, and perhaps they took a pass and they went to somewhere they shouldn't have, and then when they were involved in either a verbal or a physical altercation, so then they're brought into the dean's office, and upon searching belongings for when we have either a suspicion of drug use or something possibly being under the influence and or involved in a physical altercation, we then find other things. So it's kind of a step. So there could have been one incident, there was consequence, and then it led to another situation, then another situation. That's one example. Another example is possibly the fact that this was the 4th time we found them in the hallways. And so the next step would be, the first time we talk to them, we get them escorted to class. The next time after that, if there's a second time, they would be escorted. We would speak to them. We would have them escorted down to the ALC for that block to finish up the block. Typically, we'll catch them near the end of that block, and then they're brought back in. In those situations, I know we often call home, tell the parents, hey, look, this is what's been going on. We told your student that on the 3rd incident or beyond, we're going to be placing them in the ALC for the remainder of the day. And the parents are very supportive of that, right? They say, yeah, please, I don't want them in the restrooms. I don't want them getting out of the building. I don't want them causing other issues. At least they're receiving assignments through the Google Classroom, and they're getting supports from the teachers that are in the ALC block by block. Yeah. So I think it's for that, it'll indicate there, but it doesn't say let's say it says we put them in there for 2 blocks in one day, that will read as inside suspension, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to read just one half of a day or a portion of the day. It'll usually read the full day.
So the first example, thank you for that, that's helpful. The first example you gave was sort of an acceleration. Does that mean that if a student is identified for unauthorized presence, so unauthorized presence on the data could include a kid who also got in a fight and had a weapon, let's say?
Possibly.
But my point is, it's not just they weren't in the right place at the right time.
No.
There's more to it. So you don't write up the suspension for the fight, you write it up for the first?
Earlier in the day, they might have been, looking and seeking out someone. For example, they did not get into a fight, but the example would be they came up they left their classroom, and then they were standing outside of another classroom trying to entice another person out of that classroom. Or in some of them, in some brazen or kind of, examples, they've actually entered the classroom searching for another individual. That occurred. Mm-hmm. If they do not get into the physical altercation, that was unauthorized presence, right? They entered another room to, threaten another individual. Could that be harassment, intimidation? Yeah, verbal threat. I mean, those could be, but in the most immediate is that they went there with an intent to get at someone, and that might be an example right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add, I 100% agree with you that it's a symptom of something. Students, for whatever reason, they just find themselves in the hallway, and we had to come up with some type of progressive way of saying, hey, we need you to stop, come on down. Okay, now you're gonna, stay in one place for the remainder of the period. So that definitely, we need to figure out a way to count periods instead of just the number. So that's something that I can definitely look into. And I did recall just a few incidents where we've had students enter a classroom to either witness a fight or get involved in a fight. And that happened a few times during that school year. Kids like rushing a classroom, many kids rushing a classroom. That's really creating unsafe environment in the classroom for other students and themselves. So unfortunately, again, our freshman and sophomore students, we really need to provide more structure for them. And we're looking at ways to even partner with our student services and some other special programming to really get into those classrooms. We have one platform with the deans in summer school really do a nice job with get into the welcome to ETHS classrooms.
The prep to ETHS?
Yeah, and say, hey, listen, these are some of the expectations that we have. But, sometimes, students, don't believe until they believe.
Right.
So we've been very preventative, and even in those particular cases where we had that kind of bum rush to a class or two, it didn't escalate into an actual altercation. So again, I'm really thankful for the safety team and even the quick response to our classroom teachers and staff who, let us know what's going on right away so that we can intervene.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that you raised something that I wanted to ask a question about, because it feels like this is an example, and there are others you could pick, looking at the kids who are the most suspended, the most incidents recorded in a year, like really drilling into a smaller group and really trying to understand. Certainly you have to try to understand each individual, but sort of understand what's going on here, what's the backstory, both collectively and individually. And this unauthorized presence just jumped out at me as another, maybe one of the ways. That seems like a huge category that there's a lot of pulling apart you could look into and try to better understand. And I did want to know to what extent, because you have the 3 programs, and I thought that was really interesting what you said, that you've kind of consolidated, that these were the most effective, and you're focusing on those, and I thought that was really great. But what about, we just heard this fabulous report, how much of that is being utilized by you all, or how much are you offered how much collaboration is there with that work?
So the deans are part, first of all, great question. The deans are part of the grade level team that meet weekly with the team, the counselor, dean, social worker. And again, if there's a behavioral attendance concern that's brought to the team, and again, they discuss and they make the referrals for more intervention for the students. So it's pretty targeted and pretty frequent. And oftentimes, they're not waiting until the weekly meeting if there's some urgent need to engage. So they're on the phone with each other quite a bit. There's tons of collaboration between the departments.
And the resources as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I don't have to tell you, you developed the report, that while it's wonderful that we're seeing a decrease, that, the span between white, Latino, and African American is kind of staying pretty much the same. Not completely, but pretty close. And I know that's something that bothers you and you're working on, but I just feel like, maybe picking something and really drilling down into it and trying to figure one thing out might be instructive to the rest, because we've got to figure out a way to do things in, I don't know, shake it up, rename it, I don't know, whatever it is. I think we just have to make some little and big changes so that we can stop this kind of trend of the data. And you know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Yeah, I was going to mention, Dean Hinkle, talked about what are we doing with it. It continues to be critical to build relationships with students. They inform us before something happens. Oftentimes, they try to mitigate, peer-to-peer concerns. They really do. I give them credit. But they need a lot more strategies and coaching up and how to navigate, the peer conflicts. Mr. King has been critical in the work that he's done. You saw the numbers where the deans can really kind of pull back, kick it to Mr. King, who's Johnny on the spot. And, his background in social work as a former dean, really connects well. He has the patience, the personality to make those other connections with students and their families, to hold students to a higher level of, expectations in the building.
Thanks very much. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I just wanted to add as well that we also have instances of unauthorized presence because students feel somewhat disconnected from class. Maybe they were out for a while because they were sick and they were finding it difficult to catch up. Maybe I've had several students tell me that class is too hard. And so just trying to acclimate themselves to high school so they find class avoidance a little bit easier. And so what we've done in those particular cases, we refer those students to SST. We refer those students to social workers if it's a social emotional need. So there are just, it's a multitude of various reasons as to why students are in the hallways and not in class. So it's not just fighting, it's not just drugs. We just have students that are really struggling academically, and the only way out for them is to avoid class. And so as deans, we sit with our students, we talk with our students, we try to figure everything out. We want to see them holistically so that we can try and figure out and partner with their parents, their teachers, their grade level team as to how we can best support them.
That's great.
And I'll just add that, remember, we're looking a year behind, and authorized presence can also be as simple as you were in a hall without a pass and somebody wrote a note to the dean about it. It can be just that simple. And I think I sent a note to the board a couple weeks ago that now kids aren't on their phones in class to be able to text each other to meet in the hall. And the November 23 to November 24 data showed a 29% decrease in unauthorized presence for that same time period. So hopefully when you see the quarterly update next month, that you will see some improvement in where we are, because the challenge with these historical reports, we're still last year, but in our operational sense, we've kind of moved on and we've seen some improvement. And bell to bell, I shouldn't say it, that's not what it is, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. That kind of systemic change, I believe, has had a ripple effect with other data points that we've been looking at. So just stay tuned for that next month when you take a look at that.
Good.
Hopefully it'll.
Very good. Okay, we'll do just you three. Gretchen.
Thank you for the report. There's a lot in here, and I'm sure my colleagues will have plenty of other things to say, so I'm just going to hone in on one little thing, and that is something that jumped out at me this time that somehow has never struck me before, and that's the behavior incidents by graduation year, and then also in a similar vein, suspensions by when you break it out by graduation year. And I was really struck by this line, and you remarked on it when you put the slides up, between our upperclassmen and class people and the lower class. That doesn't sound right. Underclass, you know what I mean.
9th and 10th grades,
Freshman, sophomore versus junior, senior, right? And it seems like, it's a huge difference. It's really huge. And, I know juniors and seniors are probably thinking, well, I can't get into college or get a job if I've got, 20 discipline referrals or whatever. I'm sure there's a little bit of that motivation. You're getting closer to the exit in the real world and all of that. But it seems to me there's this real opportunity with our freshmen and sophomore to get after this problem. And it seems to me there's two way, just sitting from a parent and school board seat, not from an expert seat, there's sort of two ways in there. One way is, why are these kids arriving here thinking that they can do this stuff? So then that suggests to me we need to have some more conversation with District 65 about what are you guys doing around behavioral expectations with your kids before you send them over to the high school. So that's on the receiving end. And then once they're here, it also seems to me that we have an opportunity for our really, I think, quite well-behaved juniors and seniors to somehow influence or mentor these freshmen and sophomores. And I don't know exactly what we do there, and it's not really my job to suggest to you how to run some sort of mentoring program. It's for you guys. It's just an observation that this seems to me a real opportunity. Rather than just waiting around for everybody to become a junior when all of a sudden, for reasons that we don't even understand, behavior gets better. Let's just try and, get on it earlier in some fashion that's not just punitive, that's not just piling on more suspensions, but, those were the things that spring to mind. Do you have any thoughts off the top of your head?
Yeah,
because that was very...
I appreciate the question. And, I'm going back to one of those earlier slides. 751 unique students with one referral, 341. One referral. So that means to me, like, the kids who received them, okay.
They're like, okay.
Got it.
Not going to do that again.
And that was 45% of those who actually received an incident. So
I do love those kind of numbers.
So that's great.
That is good.
Yeah, that's a good indicator, those one and dones. So, yeah, great point.
Yeah, the other overarching opportunity, obviously, and it sounds like you've jumped on it, are the repeat offenders who just cannot.
Yeah, small percent, but they just can't get right.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it already.
I will add to that, just a couple of months ago, leadership at District 65, they've reached out to say, hey, what are you doing? Asking questions about, not only our restorative work, our truancy practices, our disciplinary practices. So we've had 2 meetings so far, just, leadership to leadership. So there's a start.
Yeah.
There's a start.
Nice.
Thank you.
Very encouraging. Mira?
Well, and I would say a continuation. I mean, you do amazing work with our freshmen and our sophomores, and it takes time, so we have the FASH and SASH, right? Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of things that are being done for freshmen and sophomores directly for that very reason. I guess my question was around, I'm wondering if you all have the opportunity to coach our staff, because you mentioned how so many kids report that it may be maladaptive, but that's why they're out in the hallways, that's why they're doing things, is because what's happening in the classroom in that Tier 1 space is insufficient. And I love all you teachers, anybody who's watching, I respect you. And we're a part of the problem. And so I'm just curious if you have the opportunity to coach staff in that way to help them improve their strategies, because I was trying to look at where a lot of these are occurring, and it seems like it's in that space.
You know, I hate to put Dr. Bavis on the spot with our EEA program, but I'm sure there's...
Dr. Robinson, thank you. There is absolutely room. I recommend that you consult with Dr. Brown to get in there and to assist folks in that.
So we just had that
I see what you
plan
did
that's
there.
right there?
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, there it is.
That's yes and. These folks, I think, do a lot of consultation all the time with teachers about reentry, about an opportunity for a redo in a restorative manner as well. And I think Mr. King was going to add something.
I'm going to ask Mr. King if you could step up here to discuss this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Soriano. I mean, I was literally leaning over. I thought I was going to hit my head or something. I'm waiting to get in the game. Somebody called me off the bench. So, no one here has ever coached a sport. Come on. So a lot of it, I think, there's just multiple opportunities. I think I know EA was mentioned, but there's some great restorative practices training going on. If I can say so myself. There are other opportunities where we learn things about students. The student forum, the Emerge group had a nice retreat, and if you all noticed, with the student forum this year, there was no talk about suspensions and detentions and things of that nature, and that's something to really think about, how that long-lasting trend was over. At least this year was. Just working with teachers. Teachers are often having questions about students and, what makes them tick and why they're not in class and things of that nature. And personally, I just think we should do more asking the students what their stories are. I mean, it's easy for us to say, well, the kids, aren't interested in this or they have deficiencies here and there. We really just got to get their stories. And to answer a question about upperclassmen kind of helping out the freshman, sophomore, when we do student empowerment program, sometimes those are mixed grades. I get the majority of the referrals from the sophomore and freshman groups, but when I have the opportunity to have some of the older students in, there is a peer conference type of ending where after we've done communication and after we've done decision making and after we've talked about real life experiences, the students talk about why, what landed them in the student empowerment program. And the upper, the seniors and juniors, they do a really good job. I don't want to say correcting the younger students, but they do a really good job being the leader in terms of asking them questions about their actions and suggesting things that they could have done differently. I don't know if I've answered a few of those things, but and then with the accountability projects, these are tailored research projects that I'm having the students do. There's a food for thought, there's something on communication, decision making, but they actually have to talk about the impact of their actions, who it impacted, how it impacted them. They have to research ways to communicate, ways to deal with anger, things of that nature. They have to identify 3 adults in the building who they can trust and talk to. They have to come up with a plan of action in terms of how do I right the wrong that I've done. The parents get a copy of the project as well, and then I give the students feedback. And it's all about accountability, and it's accountability, the power of reflection, and to be able to do so without shame is the most important aspect. And I think just doing more of that to a higher degree is just the best thing ever.
And I would like to add that in regards to unauthorized presence, which is what we're currently talking about, what we do as deans when we speak with students is that we provide them with strategies. It's our class avoidance unauthorized presence students. We provide them with strategies. We work with the teachers and the department chairs when we have a particular need for a student so that everybody's in the loop. And we'll send out emails to the teachers to ask about what types of behaviors they're seeing from these particular students, or how often are these students in class? What does their attendance look like? So that we can kind of pinpoint when these students are avoiding class. We've also performed walkthroughs in classrooms so that the students see us and they know that we are concerned about, where they are and what they're doing throughout the course of the school day. And so I think those things combined have actually helped combat some of the unauthorized presence that we've seen in the past. Is it a work in progress? Absolutely. Is there one singular solution? Absolutely not, because our students are so unique. And so it's about, looking at each case individually and looking for the similarities and the differences so that we're able to come up with something that works for students and individualize the support that they need.
Just real quickly, and something else that has helped us a great deal this year. Over the summer, all the deans we sent out for our returning students, we sent emails to all the parents regarding the number of tardies that they have so that the parents were aware of this is how many tardies your student has, these are the things you can do to try to reduce your tardies and clear them coming into the school year. Some of the parents, of course, were very shocked with the sheer number of tardies that their students had because they just hadn't checked. Of course, you're checking your students' grades, but this was, allowed them an opportunity to, have that conversation with their students, and the students have been doing a really, really good job of going to AM support, the homework center, and all the other supports to try to clear their tardies. One thing that I saw this summer from summer school, it was a great opportunity also for the incoming freshmen and really going over the expectations, getting to class on time and things of that nature. That's carried over for a lot of these freshmen. I don't have the data right now in front of me. I can feel the difference in the building. Dr. Kinsey came to the dean's office and she fussed at us and told us we need to get students into class. 5 minutes left before the bell rings. Safety is encouraging, hey, let's start moving, let's start getting to class. The students are now not waiting, the bell rings, now I'm going to go to class. That was a big problem last year, and it's definitely reflected in the data. So if the bell rings, okay, now I'm going to go to class. Well, I'm sorry, I have to go to the washroom first, then I go to class. That was why we had so many students that were, really, really late for class and all these unauthorized presence, because now as the safety officers go and check and make sure everybody, hey, let's get to class, you're finding tons of students. The data is going to reflect the difference next year. Having the conversation, hey, come on, let's start getting to class 5 minutes prior to, it's making a huge difference. I think you all will see that next year in the data, and super excited. We just see there's a feeling in the building that's different from last year, and it's a refreshing group of teenagers in the building who are here to learn, and so we're very excited about how things are going so far this year.
Great. Looking forward to that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to say before I ask my question that I think, at the forefront of all of our brains is that we have to keep looking at and recognizing and acknowledging, and we do, that we have the racial disproportionality that we do in exclusionary discipline. And I think we know that, and you guys this whole school community is working on that, and especially you all. But one thing that jumped out for me that was different in this report this year that I just hadn't really, noticed before as much is that there's such a huge percentage of suspensions for low-income students, and even greater in a lot of categories than we see in terms of the percentages when we look at our Black and brown students. And I just wondered, Do you have any comment on, like, is there any research data that you're aware of just kind of in general, what people tend to think might be the root causes behind the high rate of discipline incidents among low-income students, and how much of that can we impact in the school? How much can we combat those factors or better support low-income students?
I was going to say that's a good question. In some of the work with our partnership with Northwestern's researchers and some of the data that they've presented to us, we've heard, specific situations about students feeling called upon, embarrassed, when they are not prepared, fearing being able to present, their work in front of the class, regarding, and that's just among other things. But, specifically regarding students who are free reduced lunch status, that's something it is a curious question that I'm even interested in looking into deeper.
Thanks.
I think what you said, Ms. Hinkle, a little bit earlier about the individuality of all of these incidents. That's what makes it so challenging, is that there is no one answer, even to capture the needs of even our low-income students. They all have their own history and stories and reasons, so it's really challenging. Anybody else?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to say that the presentation was awesome. Just the flow of the information, how you all presented it, was just very engaging. Of course, it's data that is so hard to talk about, right? And it's never an easy topic, but it's really clear down to the glossary, I think, that you wanted to make sure that we understood the work that you're doing. And so I just want to say that I recognize that, and that came through in your presentation. So thank you.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate my team being here to reflect. They know the stories. They're literally very proximate to the work. And I'm glad that they had FaceTime with you in the community, so people can see who's dealing with their kids, and who's supporting their kids, and who's loving and caring on their kids while they're here with us.
I think you should send Mr. King into the middle schools. So start with them. Going back to, because I was thinking the same thing Gretchen said. I was like, dang, how can we start sooner? Because what did we hear from the last presentation? The executive functioning, how that was a top topic. And of course, our freshmen are coming into this big space, trying to find their space in this school. And again, it goes to us being a very diverse and dynamic community. We don't have the benefit of everyone earning the same income in our community. And they all wind up here at ETHS. And so with them comes the challenges that come with not having access or opportunity. And that's what you see roll out in behaviors. And then you have to figure out how to help them make it to their senior year. So again, this work is heavy, and I know, I sit on the committee, so I hear how you all are working this through and dissecting everything to try to figure out what the outcomes and the opportunities should be. So, yeah, but that's it. You should just go to the middle schools and start with them.
I did have the opportunity to do a restorative practices exercise for the reading and math and the social context classes during the summer, as well as the ETHS access classes, as well as the reading and science classes. So, and that was at Robert Crown recently, so maybe that counts for something as well.
And Mr. King, will you share with the board and public how many folks you've trained internally on restorative practices?
Oh, boy. You know, I'm on pace to do 6 trainings this year. How many? I can get back to you on that. Tyra, you know the numbers, right? How many? I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah, no.
I don't love to count the numbers. I just love to do the training.
We know that you'll be well over 100 for this year.
There we go.
But that we're well over a third of the school that has been trained thus far. So, well done.
And that comes
Third
after.
of the adults. Thank you.
And that comes after looking at the training and reducing it from taking out all the redundancy and reducing it from a 2-day to a 1-day to give more opportunity, more staff, more training. And so I'm very excited about that, and we'll continue to drive that in until hey, everyone's trained.
Well, community too, or is that not
Hey,
yet?
I'm for
okay,
it. Hey.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm ready.
We can help you.
Whenever we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. I'm ready.
I mean, that's, and I say that, I'm not joking though, that's how we provide wraparound support to our children so that every place they enter in the community, they get the same thing.
The same language, the same process.
Got it.
Yeah. It is encouraging that that you are starting to have conversations with District 65. That's encouraging to me, and I know that there's so much work to do, right? It's not like we can stop our work here and go work with them. I mean, you're training all of as many of the staff here as you can, and that's really important, and I would encourage you to do that, but it's just a process, and it's big.
They come with us with so many needs. And,
Yes.
And, you know, it's easy to point down.
Yes.
But they show up who they are.
Yes.
And it's our responsibility to kind of carry them.
And once they
from
get
them.
here,
Yeah,
they do become our responsibility.
that's right.
And I appreciate that we take that very seriously. We take it on, we embrace them. They are our students.
Yep.
I wanted to add, when we were just talking about students who are economically disadvantaged, and I think if we were to disaggregate that by race and by IEP, we would probably see a lot of the same trends that are already in there. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight that. And I love what you said too, Dr. Robinson, about looking at what are the conditions in the classroom that help kids to know that they belong. And so I would hate for us to ever look at, income and family, financial disadvantage as some sort of a reason for what's occurring in our schools.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And again, thank you again for your service, Gretchen, to this team, which would be, there we go. All right.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Moving on with our agenda, we've got 4 FOIAs. Dr. Davis?
Yeah, Mayan, yes. We have FOIAs from Kimmel, Plan, and 2 from Hayden, and the responses are in your packet.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next item is board committee reports. Do we have any board committee reports? We've had a couple of, I've been seeing stuff come through. Okay, all right. All right, and now we're at the superintendent's report. Dr. Campbell.
I want to say that Rachel has had a review session for calc, so she's not here tonight. and had a bunch of work. So Rachel, like many students, are preparing for final exams. So
Yeah.
So
We
good
encourage
luck,
that.
Rachel, for everything. So our families and Wild Kids are wrapping up a successful 2024. Whether it's dancing the night away at the freshman, sophomore, winter formal this past weekend, or performing in an absolutely beautiful jazz concert, studying and preparing for semester exams next week, our Wild Kids are continuing to shine both in the classroom and beyond. Just before fall break, our students explore the legacy and the opportunities offered by historically black colleges and universities during their HBCU Experience Day. The event features speakers, application reps, and inspiring panel of HBCU students and graduates who helped empower our Wild Kids as they make their plan for the future once they graduate from HHS. And I don't know if you heard Dr. Levizo say tonight, but our HBU applications are up by 14%,
Yeah.
which is huge. Our athletic department launched its new Wild Kids Student Athlete Speaker Series with the guest speaker Jamal Cole, the CEO and founder of My Block, My Hood, My City. Jamal's message of education, community engagement, and mentorship inspired our student athletes to lead with the purpose and make a difference both on and off the field. ETHS is hosting its annual Empty Bowl event this Wednesday to raise awareness about food insecurity and support organizations that fight hunger in the community. Thank you to our Community Service Club, and leading the effort, and to our Arts and Innovation Department, Operations, Student Activities, and Nutrition Services for their collaboration. Thanks to our Human Resources Department for sponsoring the cost for staff to receive free soup for lunch. And the Community Service Club is wrapping up its gift drive this Friday with all of the donations from students and staff supporting local not-for-profit organizations and migrant shelters. And finally, I want to say to all of the Wild Kids, best of luck next week with semester exams and experiences, and I hope everyone would have a restful and restorative winter break. ETHS winter break begins December 20th. Is it the 20th or the 21st? Is it the 20th or the 21st? It's the 20th, yes. The 20th, Friday at maybe even before 4 o'clock, but yes. Good luck with finals.
Right. you get
Happy
to say.
holidays, and we'll see everyone in the new year.
Wow. It's amazing. Here we are. Okay, thank you. All right. So we are at items for action. The first item is the adoption of the 2024 tax levy. Can I have a motion?
So
for
moved.
adoption?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes. Yes.
Yes? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, thank you. The next item is the consent agenda, which consists of approval of ETHS Arts and Innovation Wing expansion, both the exterior window replacement, approval of commercial athletic sponsorships, C&W Market and Ice Cream Parlor, approval of commercial athletic sponsorships, Oakton College, approval of minutes from November 12th, 2024 regular and closed session meetings, treasurer's report from September 2024, approval of bills, and personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, the next item is old and new business. Does anybody have old or new business to present? Okay, any polling of the board? I just want to say happy holidays to all of you. And like Dr.
Likewise.
Campbell said, good luck to all the students in finals. I've already heard a few students talking about finals. There's a little anxiety out there. There's a little bit, yeah. Yeah. All right, could we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, so we are adjourned at 9:54. Awesome.